Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 250, I believe we're up to. Sorry I did not have a review up last week. It was San Diego Comic-Con. It was pretty impossible to have a review up on time. I finished my books like that Tuesday, so if you want my thoughts on last week's books, go to Frontline Live, where I talked about my top 5 and a lot of books over there. If you need the link, I could, give you the link as well. So let's start talking about this week's books, though. We go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week, and my least favorite this week, and number 17, was Hunt for Wolverine, Mystery in Madripoor. Just another series I feel like that didn't need to be 4 issues. I liked the first issue, but as we keep going along, I don't know what story it's trying to tell. And that's kind of been the big problem with all these Hunt for Wolverine books, because Wolverine can't appear, but it's still about Wolverine. So I don't really get the purpose of these event books so far. So another big downside for me was the artwork. I think it's just very lanky. There were times where Kitty's hair looked like Wolverine's hair. It's a little bit too abstract for me, and it was hard to tell which character was which. So, for me, I gave Mystery in Madripoor 2 stars, and that was my least favorite, and that was number 17. Take a sip of water, and then we're going to move on to number 16. And I didn't give it 2.5, I gave it 2. I don't know if I said 2.5. I probably did, but that was a 2-star book. Moving on to number 16, which is Marvel 2-in-1, issue 8. This issue didn't have a bad story. Finally we get to see the fleshing out of Ben keeping the secret that their family is dead, even though we know they aren't, but he believes they are, and Johnny figures this out. But the artwork was very distracting. The line work was a little bit too bold, but at times there just was not enough detail on the page. There was even one panel where Johnny's on the floor and his face feels flat. The dimensions weren't there. So I didn't really like the artwork. The story wasn't bad, obviously. You get some good emotions, but them living this new life, I wasn't as interested in. So I gave this 2.5 stars, and that is number 16. Moving on to number 15, which is Hack and Slash Resurrection issue 9. With this issue, it's Cassie dealing with some vampires, and definitely the most interesting part of this issue is just, I was gonna say Vampironica, Vampirella and Cassie, Vampirella and Vlad's relationship. That was a lot of fun throughout the issue, but everything else just kind of feels a little generic to me, where I felt like the first arc had a really unique tone, and I hope that this series finds that tone again. Still not a big fan of the artwork either. The proportions gets a little weird and very over-exaggerated at times, so it's still not a huge fan of the artwork, but when the story's good, you can kind of look over the artwork a little bit more. So, Hack and Slash Resurrection issue 9 gets 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 14, which is Wonder Woman issue 51 with a beautiful cover. I usually get the Jenny Friesen covers. I believe that's her last name. But I really like the actual regular cover here. I thought it was really good. I wonder who does the... Let me see who ends up doing the cover. And I love the page qualities that DC's bringing back. The cover artist was Archie. That's what I thought. Archie's been doing a lot of the DC covers. With this issue, it's kind of a cute one-shot issue of this woman who is a villain, and with every jail visit, Wonder Woman's able to turn her good and build a friendship with each other. I won't say this is the best paced issue. It takes a while for me to kind of get into this character, but the overall theme makes this issue worth picking up. I'm also not a huge fan of the artist. I've seen this artist on, Dazzler and also Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy versus Betty and Veronica. I feel like a lot of their faces look similar at times. I don't really like the shape of their faces, so like the hair looks a bit over-exaggerated in that one. Like the face is a little bit too small. But overall, I gave this one 3 stars. If you're a Wonder Woman fan, I think you'll enjoy the overall theme, but if you're more of a casual Wonder Woman fan, you could probably skip this issue. So I gave that one 3 stars. Moving on to number 13, which is Long Lost Volume 2, Issue 1. We're finally back for the series. I think it was only like a 2-month hiatus, and this is the second half of the series. So they just renumbered it, and we're going to get the back half of the story. It takes a little while for the story to find its footing again for me. The girls are lost, and they're trying to defeat all these monsters, or really run away from these monsters, and then finally, when it gets into the mother and their family is where the story picks up again. And it's weirdly enough when they're separated where I felt like the story picks up. And usually I wouldn't say that. Usually I like their chemistry together. But for this issue, I liked it when they were separated. And the artwork is so good for this book. I love the uniqueness of the gray scale it uses and kind of the puffy faces works for this book. I like the monsters that are developed here, so I really like the artwork for this book. And that is, I gave that 3 stars, and that was number 13. Moving on to number 12, which is Detective Comics, issue 985. Definitely a slower issue where Batman, of course, wants to go on his own and try and defeat a villain from his past. The crew wants to help him out, and it's just them trying to figure out how to do that, and that's kind of the whole story. So not a lot going on in this one, but if you enjoy the Bat Family, pick it up. It's not a bad issue, it just was a very slow issue for me. So Detective Comics issue 985 gets 3 stars with a beautiful cover. I love these Mark Brook covers. Alright, moving on to number... Hold on, what number are we up to? We're up to number 11. And that is The Flash, issue 51. This would have been so much higher if it wasn't for the artwork. Different artists again, really didn't like the artwork. Felt very messy to me. Sometimes it felt like there's just too many lines on their faces and just not enough detail. I just did not like the art style at all for this one. So that was a big negative for me for this book. But I did like the story, especially Iris's point of view of Wally's life. Really like that stuff. And it's really just an aftermath of the Flash War, of, how people are dealing with what happened with Wally and knowing that there's this other timeline, other universe that they didn't know about and that they were connected to, except Wallace. And I really liked his story where he's like, well, I'm not even supposed to exist. So I thought that was interesting. But I wish we got to see some Bart. You left us on that cliffhanger. You want to see that continue. So now we're going to have to wait another issue to see if we're going to see Bart and where that story's going. So overall, I gave this one 3 stars. Would have been higher if it wasn't for the artwork. It really was hard for me to get into that one because of that. But I did like the story overall. Alright, moving on to number 10, which is Justice League Dark issue 1. And I did an individual review for this if you want more information on it. But it's James Tynion, and I'm not a huge fan of his writing usually. I like pieces of his Detective Comics run, but the thing that he tends to do is a very Scott Snyder thing, which makes sense because Scott Snyder was his teacher. It's just very heavy, the dialogue, and it's hard to really get into those characters because of it. And also, I don't really like how he places the panels, and now I know it's the script because I believe it's a different artist, and you can tell now he's writing in the script, saying, oh, in these 2 pages, make it go across. It's a very Brian Michael Bendis thing to do, but here it feels unnatural with the pacing. But I like the way the team is formed in this issue. I thought Zatanna was really good. I don't know if this is my series, though, because I'm not a big Magic fan. But it definitely gave me enough for another issue, again, especially with Zatanna, and I like Wonder Woman, so we'll see where it goes, but I didn't think it was a perfectly executed issue 1. So I gave that 3 stars. And moving on to another issue 1, which is my number 9, and that is Mr. and Mrs. X issue 1. Also did an in-depth review on this, and artwork is pretty good. It's solid. I like the artwork. It's a little softer than I expected, but I do like the art. The story, for me, I'm not a huge Rogue and Gambit fan, so this is obviously a very subjective thing, but I thought the wedding was a little bit too cheesy at times, and maybe just because we've gotten so many wedding stuff, it's just like, oh, we need to find something blue, we need to find something, oh, we need, it just was like, alright, I understand, just because we got the Kitty wedding, we got the Batman wedding, it just was a little bit too much here for me, but I like the honeymoon stuff, but I don't know if it gave me something personally to hook on to. I will possibly get the second issue to see where it goes, but I think Rogue and Gambit fans will really enjoy it. So I give this one 3 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is Archie's Superteens versus Crusaders, issue 2, which is the last issue of this 2-part, I guess, mini-series, I guess you would call it, with the 2 issues. With this issue, it's just fun. It's fun superhero Silver Age style of Jughead and Betty and Archie and Veronica being superheroes and teaming up with the Crusaders or really going against them. And it's just fun. That's it. Like, it's cartoony. I really love the expressions of especially Veronica and Betty throughout, and you find out, you know, how this all was possible by the end. He was in the hospital, but was it all really fake? Because then you had one of the Crusader heroes in the bottom. So if you're looking for some kind of mindless fun, pick this one up. If you like Archie, I recommend it. I had, again, fun with it. So I gave that one 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 7, which is Action Comics issue 1001. Man, the fires are still going on. We still got those fires, and I kind of just like roll my eyes because this is like 7 issues of talking about these fires that mean nothing. But the stuff I really liked was the Daily Planet stuff. I like the gossip columnists trying to say, hey, you know, move on from Lois, but obviously Clark knows what's going on with her. And then you get this really interesting cliffhanger with Lois, is that it looks like she's on Earth. She's not traveling anymore, but why is she keeping from Clark, and she's writing this book about Clark, possibly. So what's that full story about? So I really like that. Artwork is pretty similar to what we had with Superman before Brian Michael Bendis took over. It might be the same artist, I think it is. But it feels neater. I feel like the coloring feels more rendered. I feel like the inking was good. The inking wasn't as blotchy as it used to be, so I really like the art here. I thought it was, again, much cleaner than what we got with Superman. So Action Comics issue 1001 gets 3.5 stars, and mostly because that fire stuff took up a lot of time, and I still don't really like that. But there's definitely some interesting tidbits in this issue. So moving on to number 6, which is X-23, issue 2. Very solid second installment. I love Laura's inner monologue, you know, about the Cuckoos and still about her birthday. And we get to see the Cuckoo's plans kind of unraveling a little bit more. And by the end, not X-23, Gabby is stolen, so kidnapped. And what's going to happen there, and what's Laura going to do to try to get her back? So that's going to be interesting. I love this double page spread too. I love the colors and the white contrast there. But yeah, some interesting clone stuff going on. I like that Laura had to go back to the place where she grew up, and you know how much she's grown as a character because of it. So, and Gabby's just a ray of sunshine that you always enjoy. So, X-23 issue 2 gets solid 4 stars for me. Cable's artwork still very familiar, a bit lighter in the pencils than I want it to be, but I do like the artwork overall. So again, give that 4 stars, and that's number 6. Number 5. For me was Mera, Queen of Atlantis, issue 6. I was surprised to see this in my top 5, but I just thought it was a very solid ending to the series. Like the artwork, feels very classic to me. Kind of classic 90s, 80s, you know, DC Comics artwork, so I enjoyed that. But the story was really good too, you know, Mera really proving herself in this fight and fighting for Tula, but by the end, Ocean Master not being able to save himself, like you'd think the happily ever after would happen with this story, with what we saw in this mini-series, and I like that. I like that he didn't come home, because that's what his character is, you know, when he goes back into the water. So I like this issue. I thought it was really solid, and I once again finally focused on Mera as our main character. So solid series in general. So gave that one 4 stars. If you want to try out Aquaman, that's a good one. I never really read Aquaman, but it was really easy to follow. Alright, moving on to number 4. Glad to see this back in my top 5. Doomsday Clock, issue 6. Probably the best issue since issue 1. And mostly because this feels a little bit more like a one-shot issue where we get to learn more about our new villains and their background. And, it's a really heartbreaking background of how they knew each other and their parents and how they turned out the way they do. So I really like their story, but the reason I couldn't bring this higher is honestly everything surrounding it. I didn't care about Joker's story, which is surprising. You think that would be the best aspect, but it's these new characters that are really the most interesting part of Doomsday Clock so far. And of course, Gary Frank's artwork is so good. You got the 9-panel grid still going on, which is great. You know, throwback to Watchmen. And then you really get to see that philosophy come back again by the end with you know, the quotes and really just Joker's language really felt like classic Watchmen, and I've missed that from this series. So I like these new characters. I give this a solid 4 stars. Hopefully Doomsday Clock is going back on track. So now it's number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is We Are the Danger, issue 2. I just really like this book. I'm a big music fan, and it's just a slice of life music book where we get to see this band forming, which is called We Are the Danger, and they have their, you know, band rivalry in this, and romance is starting to blossom here. Our main character falling in love with one of, I think her name's Tiffany. No, Tabitha. One of Tabitha's friends or brother, I think it's might be friend. You know, she has her own love interest, the band manager in the team, and I like the way our main character reacts to that. It's like, oh, they're so cute. And I love this artwork. I love the style. I really like the coloring. I think the music really comes to life, and it's just expressive and a bit cartoony in a great way, and it's just a really fun slice of life book. If you miss heavy vinyl or the Archies, this is a really good one to pick up. I've been having a lot of fun, and I feel like the characters have been really easy to attach to, and it's only 2 issues in, so I'm looking forward to the next one for that. Moving on to number 3, oh man, this broke my heart. There's gonna be spoilers. Saga, issue 54, and damn, we have to wait a year for the next issue. Man, this is such a good issue. This was hard to battle with my number 1 and 2, but it's a battle between our main character, the father, Marco, and the assassin. I forget his name. I think the Will, right? That's his name. And they're fighting, and he gets stabbed. And you know he's gonna die. He gets stabbed by the end trying to protect his family. And we get this really awesome flashback about, you know, our main character, not wanting to have kids and saying, you know, I don't want kids. Is that okay, Dad? And he's like, yeah, you know, I really don't care. It's like, whatever makes you happy. That's all that matters. So it's this really interesting conversation between the two, between him and Hazel. And with those words with Hazel, I gotta read it. It's not like I grow up to be some great war hero or any sort of all-important savior, but thanks to my parents, at least I got to grow old. Not everybody does. Yeah. Who saw that coming? I don't know. That was, and I love Hazel's narration. That's one of the best parts of this series. And then the action with Fiona Staples' artwork. I like this little, like, game control remote. Let me see if I can find it. It's like, looks like bubblegum. But yeah, there's this kind of uniqueness to it, obviously, with this fantasy world. But then it's just this awesome fight, you know? It's just this battle between the two. And yeah, really, really good stuff. 4.5 stars for me. Again, this year hiatus is going to be really long. So I gave that one 4.5 stars. This is my number 2. Moving on to my number 1. This is just for the nostalgic aspect of this book. I really like the twist they take on Silver Age comics, and that's Amazing Spider-Man issue 2. I've been loving Nick Spencer's take so far. There's a lot of great moments. The opener being, you know, this, you think it's like a bank robbery, but ends up being a robbery for first edition books. And it's just like, oh my god, that's classic Spider-Man, but with a twist. And then you have this awesome scene between Mary Jane and Peter just saying, hey, we're together, remember that, we're happy. And then we get Peter going to school, and the Lizard has this new thing where he could be the Lizard and control himself, and Peter's like, okay, I've seen this before, we'll see if it works out. And you have these villains coming into the classroom, and Peter uses this contraption to say, oh, of course, Peter Parker's not here anymore, it's Spider-Man. And in the back of my head, I'm laughing, because it's like, of course, this is just like a the trope we always see with Spider-Man. But then they play with it, and there's another Peter somehow. It's like, what? How did that happen? So I love that. Really like Ryan Ottley's artwork as well. I just think it fits this tone, and I just really like it. It's so nostalgic but new at the same time. I just really like these both fresh voices on this character. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. That's my number one. Again, that was kind of hard between 1 and 2 because they were both really good in their own way. But Spider-Man fandom kind of won that one for number 1. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links to my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.